Hi, and welcome to the Budgeting When You're Broke video. In this video, I'll go over why budgets are important, and then we'll go over how to fill out the custom paycheck budget, which is fillable and available to download in the description of this video. I hope you enjoy it. So to start off, I think it's very important to know that you are not alone. In America, there is a culture of shame surrounding talking about your finances. And in order to be a more financially literate country, we're going to need to change that. Talking about things like your salary or your debt are very frowned on right now. And that's only worsening the problem that we have in America surrounding debt and finances and budgeting. So it's a cultural problem. It's not just a personal problem. In the United States, here are some quick statistics just to prove that you are not alone here. 38% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and 18% of people are spending more than they're earning. So every single month, they're perpetually going further into debt. Only 25% of people follow a budget. So if you picked a random lineup of 4 people, only one of those people would actually be following a budget. Hopefully, you will join their number after tonight. The average household in America has over $135,000 worth of debt. So a nice house in my area's worth of debt. 58% of people have less than $1,000 in their bank account right now. If you're part of my student group, you will know that there was an emergency student grant that just went out for $1,000. So if you didn't get that, let me know and I can send that your way. But that is crucial because most people do not even have $1,000 in their bank account. 44% of people, so almost half of Americans, have less than $400 set aside for emergency specifically. So not just money in their account, but something set aside specifically for emergencies. 31% of people, so about a third of the population, said that their biggest obstacle to saving is that they're living paycheck to paycheck. So if we look at the fact that 31% of people are living paycheck to paycheck and 31% of people say that's their biggest obstacle to savings, we can see that that's a real issue, which is why the budget that we're going to be talking about today is a paycheck budget that focuses paycheck to paycheck. Got a little ahead of myself. 21% of Americans have no retirement savings. Obviously, we don't want to be working until our dying breath. So that is something that you can think about as you're budgeting. I am among that 21% who do not have any savings for retirement. So when I say you're not alone, I mean, I'm in this too. Despite being the world's largest economy, Americans rank 14th in financial literacy. So it's not that you missed a day in school when everyone talked about finances. We're just not talking about it and not learning it. 70% of people in America say that they need to work on their financial planning. So the bottom line is that we all could be doing a better job here. So if you feel like you're starting from nothing, there's a lot of people right there, right alongside you. So there's no need to feel bad about it. Honestly, right now, just by being enrolled in community college, I can tell you that you have already taken the first step on the path toward bettering your financial situation. So the most recent data we have, which is from 2019, shows us that a high school diploma will get you a median, which is right in the middle, household income of $48,708. So essentially $49,000. But as soon as you get the associate's degree, that jumps up to $69,573. And if you go further to get your bachelor's, that's when we see another huge jump up to $100,164. And this is the median, so that's right in the middle. It's not adding everything up and dividing it, which you all know because you are in college and are taking college level math. But that's how we know that it's like actually a pretty accurate summary of what people are making. We don't have any high or low figures skewing that. Now, if you've tried to make a budget before, you might have run into some difficulties, which I would like to acknowledge. There are pros and cons of budgeting. Hopefully, when I'm through with this portion, you will see that the pros outweigh the cons, and it is worth it to set up a budget. So, one of the biggest pros is having power over your finances. When you implement a budget, you'll begin to get that sense of control that you can't have without a budget. It's very empowering to know exactly where your money is going and when and why. But it can also be incredibly uncomfortable to confront your finances and to make those changes. There's a very real sense of panic and insecurity that can happen just by opening your bank statement or opening your credit card bill in the mail. There's a lot of fear surrounding that, especially if it's an unknown. And so when you start diving into it and actually seeing where everything is going, it can be incredibly uncomfortable and traumatic. If you were in debt when you began budgeting, a pro is that you will see your balances decline, which will mean for almost everyone that the monthly payments on those will also decline. So you're putting more toward them and you're seeing that immediate benefit of having lower payments every month. Now, there is a sense of a loss of freedom when you first implement your budget. If you're used to just spending without doing the extra step of thinking and planning beforehand, that is very freeing. It's freeing to not have to do that extra step. And that can seem like a loss of freedom, but I think that you'll find when you keep going with it that it does provide you more freedom in the long run to build up savings, to be able to travel or have money for emergencies. And I think that's a different kind of freedom. So it's just about adjusting the mindset with that. There is a lot of stress around finances. I already covered how it can be fearful and traumatic to look at your bank account and your finances like that. So once you confront them, then your stress levels will decrease. So you can get better sleep at night. You can feel better about yourself. You won't have that worry in the back of your mind. You don't have to suppress those feelings of anxiousness around your finances because you'll know exactly where you stand. Adopting the discipline to say no to yourself and your family can be very difficult. It's sometimes a lot easier to tell ourselves no, but harder to tell like your child or your spouse, no, we can't get that this month, or you have to skip our Netflix this month or something like that. Saying no to things is very difficult, especially saying no to others. And you also have to learn to not justify spending by converting a want into a need. If you want to, this is very personal to me, stop at Starbucks and get a breakfast sandwich on your way somewhere, that is a want. And I always try justifying it in my head with like, well, if I don't get this breakfast sandwich, then I won't have the energy to perform my best in my job, which could compromise my career. It's like, no, you're good, actually. Just like remember to make a smoothie in the morning and take that with you. So not really getting out of the mindset of justifying needs or wants that you think are needs. It can be very difficult because it's changing a habit of thinking and a pattern in your brain. So that can be difficult. Now, another pro here, as your situation financially is improving, you can indulge yourself. You can treat yourself to some nice little extras, some things that make you feel better. You can do things for yourself and you won't feel any guilt about spending that money on yourself because it's all part of your plan and part of your budget. Budgeting doesn't mean that you have to deprive yourself of everything that makes you happy. It doesn't mean you have to be miserable. It just means that you know where your money is going and that it's something that you are comfortable and aware of. It does take time to set up a budget, and you need to adjust it every month or every paycheck, depending on how your budget is set up. If you're using the one that we're providing today, then that'll be every paycheck. So it requires some time up front to get it set up, and then a little bit of time every paycheck to go through and tweak and modify. But it's an investment of time that you'll see pay off in the long run. When you begin building savings, you'll see a tangible representation of that control that you're gaining over your finances. It's very encouraging and powerful to see even a small amount of savings, especially if you didn't have any savings before, or you had one of those savings accounts that you constantly had to borrow from to pay your bills, because I've been there. And you're like, yeah, this is my savings account. I take from it every month to pay my heating bill. Like, that's not savings then. So to have real savings is very empowering and a very good sense of control. Okay, now that we've gone over the pros and cons, why do you even need a budget? Why is a budget important? Here are the three main reasons. First of all, you want to avoid spending more than you have. The average credit card debt per household in 2020 was over $7,000. So when you have a budget and you stick to it, you don't get any surprise bills. And if you do need to put something on a credit card, you'll know exactly how much you put on there, and you can budget your next paycheck to pay it off. So really having those surprise bills is what we're trying to avoid here. And also hopefully to avoid spending more than we have in that paycheck. Secondly, you want to be prepared for emergencies. Even if you're only putting a small amount of every paycheck into that emergency fund, that can be the difference literally between having a financial emergency ruin your life or having a financial emergency be a temporary setback. There are so many people who are completely wiped out by unexpected bills, and we don't want you to be one of them. We want you to have that emergency fund because you can't plan for everything in life, unfortunately. And lastly, because knowing is half the battle. If you're just guessing where your money is going, it can be incredibly frustrating when you see that you have $10 at the end of the month again, and you are feeling like, I am trying to cut back on spending, and I still don't have any money at the end of the month. How is this happening? Well, you can know exactly how it's happening if you have a budget. So once you know where you're overspending, then you can stop overspending. You can find areas to cut back on to help pay for other things. But you can only do that if you know how much you're spending every month and what you're spending it on. Before we get to the actual paycheck budget and what it looks like, let's go through the steps for how to use it just to make sure that this makes sense for everyone. So step one is to fill out the monthly calendar, which you'll be seeing in a second, with all the bills that are due monthly. So this would be things like your phone bill, your rent, health insurance, car insurance, internet bill, even subscriptions would be in here. So things like Netflix, or if you have HBO Max, things like that, that would all be part of those monthly bills, and just fill those in on the calendar when those are due. And step two is to fill in your calendar with things that you pay monthly but don't have a specific due date. So your gas, groceries, things that you buy every single month, but you might not buy in the exact same day every single month. Go ahead and fill those in around the times you typically pay them. And you can look through your bank statements, credit card statements, things like that to figure out when you're usually doing that. If you go to the grocery store every Sunday, that'd make that easy. But you just want to have an approximation of when those things are being bought. Then at the bottom of your calendar, you're going to put any large expenses that happen only a few times a year. So property tax, if you own your house, is due once a year. Oil changes on your car, new tires on your car, Christmas gifts, If you go really hard for birthdays like I do, I have birthday gifts for my siblings at the bottom there. So any of those large expenses that you're going to have to save up for, but that you don't pay on a monthly basis. And the next step is to add your paychecks to the monthly calendar. And then this is where you'll assign them colors. So if you get paid every other week, like on the 15th and the 30th, put your paycheck 1, paycheck 2, and then for all of the bills that you have written in on your calendar from the 1st to the 15th, you're going to make sure that those correspond to the color of paycheck 1. And then everything from the 16th to the 30th or 31st would be the color of paycheck 2, so that you can see how those bills will be split up when we go to transfer them onto the actual paycheck budget worksheet, which is the next step. So this paycheck budget worksheet divides bills differently than how you put them on the calendar. It will divide them into fixed amount bills, variable amount bills, and future bills, and then there's a little section for savings. So fixed amount bills are the bills that are the same amount every month, or around the same amount. So this will usually line up with the bills that are due monthly, like your phone bills, rent, health insurance, things like that. The things that are due on the same day every month are typically the same amount every month, but not always. So just keep that in mind. And then variable amount bills usually line up with the things that are not due on a specific day, but it could change. So just keep in mind, fixed amount bills is a steady dollar amount. Variable amount bills are fluctuating dollar amounts. And we're going to want to figure out like an average of what those are, and that's what we'll be putting into the worksheet. I recommend putting on the higher amount of the average. And again, if you look through your bank statements and your credit card statements, that will help you figure out how much you've spent previously on those things so that you can budget accordingly. Then future bills is where we'll start putting aside money for those large expenses we identified at the bottom. So in this example, if you spend $500 every year on Christmas gifts and you get paid every other week, then you'll have to budget $20 from every paycheck in order to cover that $500 when Christmas rolls around. And then savings is very important. We have to budget savings every month so that if those emergency expenses come up, we have a pool of cash to draw from for that. So savings is the one area that I would say, if you have to cut back somewhere, don't make it savings. Cut somewhere else. And then the very last step, after adding the bill totals, then subtracting them from your paycheck, you will see how much money you have for fun spending each month. And so the way that this budget differs from other ones is some budgets have you budget out your fun money every month, which I think is more stressful than it needs to be if you're trying to plan that out and also plan the rest of your expenses that you need to like live. So this spreadsheet that I made, instead of budgeting specifically for that fun money, you just look at how much money you have left over at the end of the month or at the end of the paycheck. So some paychecks you might not have any fun spending money for that paycheck. And then you'll just wait till the next paycheck when you do have that fun money, and then you can have fun. Some tips and tricks here. If you have more than 2 paychecks per month, you may find it easier to combine the paychecks in your budget, so you only have to do 2 of those budgets. So if you have like a weekend job and then a weekday job, so you get 4 actual paychecks per month, you might want to just combine 2 of those so that you have like the first half of the month's paychecks and the second half of the month's paychecks, just to make it easier on yourself, because it can get confusing if you have more than 2 paychecks per month. Review bank statements and receipts from the past few months to see how much you spend for variable bills like groceries and gas every month, like I was saying. And if you find that there's like a huge difference, you might want to take the median instead of the mean, which we've discussed already. So the middle number instead of adding them up and dividing them. That way you don't get any huge outliers making your average wonky. If you split a bill with someone else, such as rent with a roommate, only write down the amount you personally are responsible to pay. That makes sense if you say it out loud, but when you're just going through and copying numbers, sometimes that can get missed. So just make sure you're cognizant of that. For larger bills like rent, you may have to split it over 2 budgets. I have to do this for my mortgage. I can't pay it all with one paycheck. So I split it into mortgage 1 and mortgage 2. And that way I take part of each paycheck to pay for that. If you find you have no money or negative money when you finish your budget, obviously that can happen, and that's not what you want. So your first step would be to find bills you can eliminate. You can split larger bills between paychecks like we covered. You can call companies to see if you can move the due date of their bills. Some companies are completely inflexible about this. Like I know my car insurance, they're like, nope, can't change it. But my phone bill, I can change the day of. So call companies, see if you can move it around so that you can if you have extra money from one paycheck, maybe you can move a bill from your first paycheck to that paycheck to make it make sense. And also make sure to utilize local nonprofits who can help with bill payments. Websites like my211.org help you find local nonprofits who help with specific areas like rent or transportation. That website's really great for completely filtering down to exactly what you need assistance with. And if you have not already applied for Michigan Bridges, you should do that as soon as possible to start receiving your tax benefits towards groceries and other relevant expenses, because we're already paying taxes into these things. And so if we can then get those tax benefits back, it makes sense because we're already paying for them. If you have high debt from loans and credit cards, consider putting your fund money maybe every other month toward a payment on those to help pay them down quickly. Something that I started doing over the pandemic, since I couldn't go out and actually browse Target the way that I normally do to blow off stress, is I would just take $20 that I would have normally spent on like the dollar spot at Target and just put it toward my student loan payment. And the rush of happiness was not exactly the same, but it was close actually. So just a little strategy you can try employing there. And you will need to look at and adjust your budget every month, but most items will stay the same. So obviously, if there's like a month that you know you're going to do more traveling, your gas, you might have to budget more toward. Or like during the spring and fall, you might not have to pay for heating or cooling, so you can spend less in those areas. It'll just be a little bit of tweaking, and it will take some time as you learn your own habits so that everything works out correctly, but it'll be worth it. Okay, so those are all of the very complicated instructions. Now let me show you the actual budget paycheck, and I'll show you how it auto-calculates everything for you. Okay, so here you can see the paycheck budget and the monthly calendar that we were talking about before. I've pre-filled these 1 through 30 just to make it simpler, but you can always change it however you want because obviously every month is different. So I'm just going to go in and start filling in some common things that you might see. Just as an example, obviously people have more bills than this, but this will just give us something to work through when we put them in to see how the calculation works for the paycheck budget. Okay, so here we have things that will all be for our first paycheck of the month because we're going to say that that is on the 15th. Now, to color code this, you have 2 options. You can either print it out and go through and like highlight them with a highlighter, or if you have the Adobe Acrobat for PDFs, you can change the font color in there. But we're just going to leave like this since we're just doing the first paycheck here. So let's say that this paycheck is $550. And our Netflix bill is mine is 15 because I have like several people on my account. So we're going to put in 15. And then our heat bill, we'll say is 65 every month. Now the two variables from this are groceries, which we'll say we're spending $125, and gas. We'll give ourselves $45 for gas. Now we know that for Christmas gifts, if we want to spend $500 and we're paid every other month, we're going to want to put $25 away for that. And for savings, let's put in $100 to our savings account. And so you see that leaves us with $175 there. Now, if we had some other things we needed, so let's say our internet bill was also due this month, and we wanted to get some clothes, and we also wanted to go out to dinner. Dinner out. And that's going to be like $65. So if we put all those in, and we look at the bottom, we're like, yikes, negative $40. Then we have to look at where we're going to cut back, and we can do those calculations right here. So this one would be pretty easy. We could just eliminate dinner out, and then when we do that, we see that we have $25 left over. So then maybe we change this to lunch out, and that'll be $25. And then we can see that we've broken even here. Now, if the expense was something that we couldn't adjust, like say that our phone bill was due and that was $70. I don't know how much phones cost these days. Then we'd have negative $45, and maybe we needed the clothes for a job. So none of these are negotiable. We know that we do want to have savings every month, but maybe we don't need to have $100 in savings. Maybe this month we put $50 towards savings, and then we have enough for a fun $5 Starbucks drink or whatever. Or we see that and we go, okay, well, I can raise my savings up to $55 this month then. So you don't want to eliminate savings or future bills, because those are going to come back to haunt you in the future. Things that you want to try to take out of are these variable amount bills. So maybe you could spend less on groceries or gas, maybe you only get a half tank. But since this calculates as you go, it's really easy to see the places that you can adjust and see, well, that would really affect it, exactly how much that affects your money in real time as you fill out the paycheck budget.